Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. We cannot change anything until we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people. A particularly beautiful woman is a source of terror. As a rule, a beautiful woman is a terrible disappointment. Even a happy life cannot be without a measure of darkness, and the word happy would lose its meaning if it were not balanced by sadness. It is far better to take things as they come along with patience and equanimity. As far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. One looks back with appreciation to the brilliant teachers, but with gratitude to those who touch our human feelings. The curriculum has so much necessary raw material, but warmth is the vital element for the growing plant and for the soul of the child. A man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. The word happy would lose its meaning if it were not balanced by sadness. Children are educated by what the grown-up is and not by his talk. The pendulum of the mind alternates between sense and nonsense, not between right and wrong. The least of things with a meaning is worth more in life than the greatest of things without it. Knowledge rests not upon truth alone, but upon error also. We are born at a given moment, in a given place, and, like vintage years of wine, we have the qualities of the year and of the season of which we are born. Astrology does not lay claim to anything more. Often the hands will solve a mystery that the intellect has struggled with in vain. There is no such thing as a pure introvert or extrovert. Such a person would be in the lunatic asylum. If there is anything that we wish to change in the child, we should first examine it and see whether it is not something that could better be changed in ourselves. Dreams are the guiding words of the soul. Why should I henceforth not love my dreams and not make their riddling images into objects of my daily consideration? The collective unconscious consists of the sum of the instincts and their correlates, the archetypes. Just as everybody possesses instincts, so he also possesses a stock of archetypal images. Mistakes are, after all, the foundations of truth, and if a man does not know what a thing is, it is at least an increase in knowledge if he knows what it is not. We deem those happy who, from the experience of life, have learned to bear its ills without being overcome by them. We should not pretend to understand the world only by intellect. The judgment of the intellect is only part of the truth. A human being would certainly not grow to be 70 or 80 years old if this longevity had no meaning for the species. The afternoon of human life must also have a significance of its own and cannot be merely a pitiful appendage to life's morning. Man's task is to become conscious of the contents that press upward from the unconscious. Nobody, as long as he moves about among the chaotic currents of life, is without trouble. The man who promises everything is sure to fulfill nothing, and everyone who promises too much is in danger of using evil means in order to carry out his promises, and is already on the road to perdition. The Christian missionary may preach the gospel to the po-naked heathen, but the spiritual heathen who populate Europe have as yet heard nothing of Christianity. Man is not a machine that can be remodeled for quite other purposes as occasion demands, in the hope that it will go on functioning as regularly as before but in a quite different way. He carries his whole history with him. In his very structure is written the history of mankind. In all chaos there is a cosmos, in all disorder a secret order. Where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, there love is lacking. One is the shadow of the other. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. The healthy and does not torture others. Generally, it is the tortured who turn into torturers. Through pride, we are ever deceiving ourselves. But deep down below the surface of the average conscience, a still, small voice says to us, something is out of tune. Every form of addiction is bad, no matter whether the narcotic is alcohol or morphine or idealism. It all depends on how we look at things, and not how they are in themselves. The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases. When an inner situation is not made conscious, it appears outside as fake. The creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct acting from inner necessity. The creative mind plays with the objects it loves. Man needs difficulties. They are necessary for health. The greatest and most important problems of life are all fundamentally insoluble. They can never be solved but only outgrown. I have treated hundreds of patients, among those in the second half of life, that is to say, over 35. There has not been one whose problem in the last resort was not that of finding a religious outlook on life. The most intense conflicts, if overcome, leave behind a sense of security and calm that is not easily disturbed. It is just these intense conflicts and their conflagration which are needed to produce valuable and lasting results. For a young person, it is almost a sin, or at least a danger, to be too preoccupied with himself. But for the aging person, it is a duty and a necessity to devote serious attention to himself. Masses are always breeding grounds of psychic epidemics. who has fully realized that history is not contained in thick books but lives in our very blood. The debt we owe to the play of imagination is incalculable. It is a fact that cannot be denied. The wickedness of others becomes our own wickedness because it kindles something evil in our own hearts. Follow that will and that way which experience confirms to be your own. The word belief is a difficult thing for me. I don't believe it. I must have a reason for a certain hypothesis. Either I know a thing, and then I know it. I don't need to believe it. In my case, Pilgrim's Progress consisted in my having to climb down 1,000 ladders until I could reach out my hand to the little cloud of earth that I am. Resistance to the organized mass can be affected only by the man who is as well organized in his individuality as the mass itself. Great talents are the most lovely and often the most dangerous fruits on the tree of humanity. They hang upon the most slender twigs that are easily snapped off. All the works of man have their origin in creative fantasy. What right do we have then to depreciate imagination?